Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dillon Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for Geek Vibes Nation and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. As always, we always have some really amazing titles to talk about, and I'm going to just kick it right off. So we got a really interesting one today. It is Sembene, and it's about the director Usman Sembene. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyways, gosh, he's a really interesting filmmaker, and they call him the father of African cinema. And so I will say, going into this, I wasn't super familiar with his work. I am really familiar with his film Black Girl, which Criterion put out, and probably that's when the average like cinema buff thinks about his films, that's usually the one everybody kind of knows. But yeah, I am by far not like an expert outside of that. So it was really interesting. Kind of like with the documentary I talked about last week about Elise Guy. I really didn't know a lot about his movies. And so this was really interesting. And what I love about this documentary, and I think about some really fantastic documentaries, is the co-director really does a great job of taking his personal experiences with this filmmaker and giving it like a little bit more depth than just this is the man, this is his work, this is, you know what I mean, like it does that too, and in a really nice kind of chronological way. But it has those personal moments and touches. Like, it's so interesting because they were saying about how um even though he was like a great director, like he had um like they wanted him to lecture in America about African cinema. And at first he was like, no, Americans, I don't want to like teach them about my work and blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of comes around to it. And it's like really interesting because, I mean, you see kind of how he maybe breaks out of his kind of shell as far as like some preconceived kind of notions. And it's really fascinating. And like his work is truly controversial stuff. Like, it's like he tackles things that I think most filmmakers would be kind of terrified to tackle, just subject wise. So I think that's incredibly gutsy. A lot of his films center around politics. Politics is a huge thing in his work. Like, class structure, like class divide. Those are huge themes in his movies. And I think this was a really good crash course in his work because I'm not very knowledgeable. So it was kind of fun to watch this and then go to Criterion like channel and check out some of his other works. And then it like puts a really cool light on everything. So I thought it was really great. Again, it's, I think, a really excellent primer. Like, it certainly helped me kind of understand his work a little bit more. So that is a better shot as a cover. And then it does have some really nice extras, which I think are really worthwhile. And yeah, it's really great. Again, as somebody that was like very new to his work, I was it was really interesting to not only, I mean, because they do a really nice job of deep diving into the making of his films, but also, again, it has that like personal aspect of it where you really get to like feel like this filmmaker like personally. So I really like documentaries that can kind of give you something that is like a biography, but then splice it with something a little bit more like intimate and personal.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really interested to check out this documentary because people who have been watching our show for a while, they may remember a few months back I talked about this Criterion movie called Immortal, This Is My Desire, because I thought it'd been heavily influenced by Sembene. And this movie here, Mandavi, is one of his movies that was put out by the Criterion Collection. I reviewed this for Geek Vibes Nation, I think at the end of 2020, and it was my first experience with them, and I really love this movie. And I was checking while you were talking because I had it here, and I was like, I think I've seen portions of this movie, and I confirmed that there are like outtakes from that documentary as like special features on this disc. So I've seen like outtakes from the movie, but I haven't seen the actual documentary itself. So I am definitely interested in knowing more about his work, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, nice. I definitely think you'll like it. I think anybody that's a big film buff, like, again, I always love learning about new facets of cinema, especially like from a different cultural lens. So that is perfect to check out.
Absolutely. I'm sticking with what I was just talking about on the Criterion track. I want to talk about a release I'm so excited about. I loved revisiting this movie, and that is The Virgin Suicides from the Criterion Collection, newly out on 4K Ultra HD. Get a little closer there. This came out back in 2018 on Blu-ray, but they just released this with high dynamic range, and it has the other original Blu-ray along with it. The interior artwork is kind of like the opening credits, where it's all the like stencil drawings, like you're writing in a binder. So yeah, there's that. And let me show you this fold out booklet real quick that comes with it. Have this here. There's the back, and it folds out quite nicely to a nice essay you got here. So, and it's a really great essay, and it helps bring a nice perspective to this movie that made me appreciate it even more. But for those who aren't familiar with the movie, this is the feature directorial debut from Sofia Coppola, who people might know better from like Lost in Translation or maybe The Beguiled or Marie Antoinette. She is a good collaborator with Kirsten Dunst, and this is their first collaboration. So Kirsten Dunst is a star. It also has James Woods and Kathleen Turner, and Josh Hartnett in it as well. And I mentioned Josh Hartnett because in the special features that are carried over, you have Josh Hartnett, Kirsten Dunst, Sofia Coppola, and the cinematographer. They all come back to kind of reminisce on this movie and their experiences, and I really enjoyed that. It's like a 26-minute featurette that I really loved. But the movie itself, I'd always really liked it, but revisiting it, I really realized that this might be my favorite Sofia Coppola movie. And it's about what I really take from this is it's framed from like a male perspective as remembering these girls who grew up in this neighborhood who lived under like a Catholic oppression. Like their parents were kind of very protective of them and kept them in their house, and they were kind of mysterious to the neighborhood kids. And the movie starts out, it's a kind of like, it's a drama, and it's very dark, and it's dark themes, obviously, but it's handled with kind of a lighter touch through Sophia and the like kind of construction that I think works really well. It starts out with the suicide attempt of the youngest daughter of these five girls in this family. And then you hear through the narration that all of these girls will have committed suicide by the end of the movie, and just kind of how it leads up to that. And that's obviously a tragic story, but what I really take from this is it's a movie about how kind of men kind of project their own ideas of what they want or they think women are, or what they kind of their fantasies of them, compared to how Sofia Coppola takes the source novel material and really adds extra layers to the women, and doesn't, it makes them more than just like kind of like a idealized totem of a woman. They're like shown to have actual like personalities, and just how they're kind of living under this oppression. It's really an interesting movie.
Hmm.
I just really love it. It's like a really like tightly paced 97 minutes. It's not overly long or anything. It has a really great soundtrack, both from the classic like 70s tunes, because it's a period piece, along with the new score from the French electronic band Air, which has kind of like a mysterious quality that it adds to the movie. I really, really love this movie. And like I said, the special features are great. I already mentioned that one new featurette. There's also a 16-minute interview with the author of the novel. And there's like a 24-minute making of featurette that Sofia Coppola's mother's kind of shot on set. So it's kind of like you're a fly on the wall, which is really interesting. And then there's also one of Sofia's short films that she did right before the Virgin Suicides. And it's also really great. It's in black and white. You can tell that there's a lot of talent even from that initial short film. For those who have the old Blu-ray, I cannot say that it's like a night and day difference based on my comparisons with this new 4K. But what I can say is that the colors are a little bit like they're richer. The compression is a lot better. So you have like deeper blacks. I think the whites aren't like super contrasty or anything. They're shot with like kind of a more subdued intention based on what I heard in the interview. So they didn't like boost up the whites or anything, but they're really controlled and honed in. So I think overall it's a more nuanced, like controlled look to the movie. It's like really like clear and detailed and really nice. I had not previously purchased this on Blu-ray, which was good news for me. So I got to see this in the best quality possible, and it was a really great viewing experience. And I would highly recommend it if you're a fan of Sofia Coppola at all, or just like well-made dramas and you're just wanting to like get into her work.
Nice. That is on my shame list. I have not seen that yet, so I'm gonna make that a top priority, especially now. So I like a lot of her movies. So it's just one of those, I don't know, for whatever reason has kind of escaped me. But now this seems like the perfect time. So
there you go.
My next one is definitely much lighter, and that is a Martin Short double feature.
Ooh.
And this is Cross My Heart and Pure Luck. And here's the back. And so first of all, have you seen or even heard of these movies? Okay.
Nope.
Well, and this is a really interesting time to re-release these because I really love Only Murders in the Buildings, and then the second season just started. I haven't actually had time to watch it yet, but I will. Cross My Heart is a really early film with Martin Short in the lead, and it's really interesting because they don't quite know how to utilize his personality, let's say. It's kind of weird because they definitely make him like the romantic lead, and they kind of make him like try to make him like the sexy romantic lead. Well, yeah. So I will say, trigger warning, you see Martin Short pretty early on in the film in nothing but a Speedo, and it is haunting. It is like seared into my brain. Yeah, it really is a whole thing. But the movie's pretty interesting. It kind of boils down to like this big third date between Martin Short's character, played his character's name is David, and then this like big date with Kathy, played by Annette O'Toole. And there's a lot of tension because they both are hiding secrets. Like we both kind of know like what the secrets are kind of early in the movie, but then it does that kind of like classic thing of like the audience knows more than the characters do. So there's always that like it's not a suspenseful film, but it is interesting how they're able to kind of milk some tension out of that. I so it's definitely out of the two films, it's the better of the films. It almost kind of feels like After Hours, but minus the amazing direction of Martin Scorsese, the very weirdness of it. But it's just, I mean, it is kind of weird, but it kind of has that, like, it takes place mostly on this one night, and like all this crazy stuff happens. But it's like, again, Martin Short is played up really funny, and he has great timing and stuff. But again, it's so awkward because they're trying to make him this romantic lead, and I don't really think that suits Martin Short. He's definitely more suited to like the next film, which is a buddy film. But it's pretty. I mean, it's good. It's pretty middle of the road, though. It's a little cringy because, like, David's character is very toxic,
Oh.
and but they frame it as endearing, and oh, he is just a scamp, and she'll change him, and it's fine.
Mhm.
It's like, no thanks.
Yeah.
But it's an early like rom-com, so what do you want? But it was pretty engaging. Again, I was never really bored. It was just really fascinating how they kind of transformed his character from like the sexy male lead to a little bit more of a comic kind of figure. Like, and that's kind of like where I think Pure Luck is a better vehicle for Short, even though the movie isn't definitely as good. So Short is playing this really unlucky guy who's looking for a rich, equally unlucky woman. Like the prevailing theory is Martin Short's character is so unlucky that he will instinctively know how to find this heiress who is very unlucky. It makes no sense, but just go with it.
Yeah.
The whole movie really doesn't make any sense, but yeah, so the movie's fair. I mean, again, the plot is really simple and it's pretty aimless, but I think it's interesting and like fairly engaging. I think what's nice is, like, Danny Glover and Martin Short do, I think, really great, given like the really bad dialogue and some of the awkward kind of staging. The huge problem with this, though, is try as they might, Short and Glover do not have chemistry together. That's why this pairing really doesn't work. I think it's maybe one of the big reasons why this whole movie kind of doesn't work. Like, you just don't kind of believe them as like a duo. But this movie has a really fascinating legacy, though. So Henry Shearer is in this film, and of course, he voices a lot of characters in The Simpsons. And there is a character named Frank Grimes in a pretty infamous Simpsons episode. So it's almost like they sort of like took a little, and it's interesting because the demise of Frank Grimes kind of mirrors a little bit of that Simpsons episode. So it's almost like the legacy of this film is just because they kind of reused the plot a little bit for a pretty famous Simpsons episode. But um yeah, so overall they both look actually fairly well. I kind of wonder if so these are both Universal films, so I wonder if they come from like scans from previous maybe Universal releases. But overall they look really well. I mean, again, Mill Creek is a little hit or miss, but I was really pleasantly surprised with how these looked overall. There's a little bit of blurring, there's a little bit of instances where it's not maybe as crisp or clear as you'd like it, but it's definitely like a step up if like Mill Creek was kind of sourcing this from like a bargain basement release. So
Yeah.
overall it's really good. The movies themselves, if you
Yeah.
really like Martin Short and you love him, you would probably dig it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think Cross My Heart would be probably the better of the two. But yeah, it's Not one I would say you'd have to like run right out and see, but if you are a fan of that actor, it's good for completion's sake. So
Yeah, I mean, I recently just covered Clifford, so I guess maybe I'm in the right headspace to check this out. I might have to pick that up.
yeah, gosh, I think Clifford's such a good movie. It's one of those like I don't even know if I think it's so bad it's enjoyable. I think it's just enjoyable. I think it's such a crazy, weird was like early 90s, like mid to early. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see you liking Cross My Heart. Pure Luck, I think it has its moments, but it's definitely like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel when you come to like really great, buddy comedies. So
Well, I guess I'll have to report back and see what happens.
okay.
Switching gears a little bit, I'm going to pick up a thread that I started a few months ago when I talked about the third season of this show, because I've finally been able to finish the full run of it, and I'm going to go over it. So it's a couple of different releases right here, and I'm going to talk about them kind of as one entity. We have Gomorrah season 4, Gomorrah season 5, and the spinoff The Immortal here.
Nice.
Yeah. So let me just show all these off really quickly. They're kind of similarly packaged. The fourth season here. Got the back cover art, slipcase, and yeah, this has 4 discs. Kind of. There you go. Because it has 12 episodes, I believe. The 5th season is a 3-disc set, so here's the back of that. Slipcase. 3-disc. And then Immortal is just a 1-disc movie spinoff. So here. And just the cover art. So yeah, this show continues to be like one of the better like international shows that I've seen. I really, really enjoy it. It's a great crime drama for those who remember me talking about it previously. So the actual viewing order of this is kind of interesting. So the spinoff here, The Immortal, it focuses on the character of Ciro, who is a main character in the Gomorrah series. And this acts as both a prequel and sequel to events that happens at the end of the 3rd season. So this kind of shows you, it functions really well within the Gomorrah universe, but it also, if you don't have a relation to the show, it actually functions as a pretty great standalone movie. It's just like a nice crime drama because it traces kind of his early life while also giving you glimpses of kind of his like kind of modern context and how his past influenced his present and all of that. So it's a really layered crime drama, which just gives you, like, for people who are familiar with the series, it gives you a lot of nice depth to this character that you've already known for 3 seasons, or you just get to get into this kind of criminal world that's really textured and layered. And like I said, it stands alone as its really own, really exciting movie that's every bit as good as the main show. Now, while this takes place post season 3, it actually leads it right into season 5. So I'm torn on how to like recommend viewing this one. So either way, either before season 4 or right before season 5, I think it would work really well. But going to season 4, this picks up on like after a crucial turning point at the end of season 3. One of the characters is trying to kind of go more legitimate. There's still like crime involved, but it's kind of more in a different sense. Kind of in the fact, like in the vein of corporations are every bit as criminal as some actual like mob outfits, basically. So it's kind of like getting into a different vein of the criminal world while also seeing this character pass off the family business to another character, and how that character kind of I'm trying to be vague here because I don't want to give away all the plot points, but how that character kind of steps into that role of power, and how that affects everything within the community of Naples and all of that going on. So I think that season 4 holds up every bit as well as the first 3 seasons. You might start to notice a slight drop off in quality, but I think it's still a really exciting season of television. Excuse me. Season 5. This is the final season, and it is good, but it is a steep decline in quality. It's kind of at the point in the show where characters start making decisions that aren't as airtight as they were in earlier seasons. They kind of seem to be just making decisions to further the plot instead of making decisions that seem advantageous for them or like logical. So the show remains entertaining, but there are certain things that are very infuriating whenever the writing was so intricate, tight knit in the earlier seasons. You kind of just start to see characters act in a way that you're just kind of leaves you a little baffled at times, but it's still entertaining. It's just not as good as like the like amazing first like 3 or 4 seasons. So like season 5, I think it ends well. It's entertaining. It just, compared to the high benchmark of the first seasons, it doesn't end the strongest. But if you're a fan of this series, you want to see how it ends, just know that it is a little bit of a steep, or a little bit of a decline, not like an incredible decline, just a decline. But overall, the series is really amazing. It's highly recommended for anyone who likes like crime dramas. I've seen it compared to like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, of like Italian TV series. It does have like both the original Italian and the English dubs on these. There are no other special features, but if you check this out, I do personally recommend the original Italian, but I know some people just don't want to read, but I think it's worth checking out either way.
Yeah, I mean, for me in our household it's subs before dubs, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that sounds really cool. I know I still need to get into the last season, but yeah, it's such a fantastic show. Also, well, this is from Kino Studio Classics, and so this is a trio of films that I'm really excited about, and that is we got some more great nature run amok made for TV movies from the 70s. So longtime viewers of the show will know I love made for TV movies, especially stuff from the 70s, especially stuff that's like genre stuff like sci-fi or horror especially. So we got some really great things to talk about. So kicking off is Terror Out of the Sky. And let me show you the back. Got some really nice extras, really nice slipcover, and no reversible art. I know Ants has that kind of classic VHS cover, which I'll get to, but yeah, so this was a little confusing at first because this is actually a sequel to the Savage Bees, and interestingly enough, I did some research, and the Savage Bees is available on DVD, but it's not available, at least in the US, on Blu-ray yet. I haven't heard anything in the pipeline about the first one coming to Blu-ray, but just be aware if you're curious about the first film, they do have an official DVD release. But yeah, so it's one of the rare things where we get the sequel kind of first. And and I think it's even rarer that a made-for-TV movie gets a sequel. That usually, it's not completely unheard of, but it usually doesn't happen. So, anyways, it was interesting because I did get to watch The Savage Bees and then watch this, and it's interesting because The Savage Bee kind of has a stinger at the end where it implies that the queen bee isn't quite dead, or they kind of leave you with like there's definitely they set it up for a sequel, so they were really smart to do that. So the movie, you don't really need to see the first one. I think it helps a little bit, but because it is kind of confusing because the there I don't think there's anybody from the first film that comes back. The lead actor is replaced, and they actually kind of reshoot the ending. So they frame the recap is kind of framed where the lead actress is kind of having a dream about the finale, but they kind of slightly reshot it with her instead of the original actress. It's kind of weird. Again, that's why I was like so confused because it like felt like they were trying to catch me up on something that I didn't know I needed to catching up on, and then I went back and rewatched the first one. But anyways, so you don't really need to see the first film, but I think it kind of helps. But anyways, it kind of recaps that for you. The movie's interesting because the stakes are a little bit higher in this one, although it's a little bit of a downer because there really isn't as many really awesome bee attacks as the first film. There's this amazing sequence in the first film that I actually was super like tense, because they get like you can kind of see it like, well, this is like they kind of copy the sequence for like the end with the bus, but in the first film they get all the bees to like swarm this car, and then they like drive it into this like cooler to like kill all the bees or whatever. And it's like legitimately tense. So this movie kind of doesn't really have that like set like really tense set piece, but it kind of ups the stakes because like the bees are attacking like a school bus, and there's like kids in peril, and well, you can see the bus there. So they kind of almost redo like the amazing first shot or first like finale with only with like a bus and school kids. But it's fine. It's pretty entertaining. Again, you don't get a lot of like bee attacks, but when you do, it's pretty awesome. Like there's a really gnarly effect where like this guy's like face is all messed up and there's like still bees coming out of his mouth. It's wild. Dan Haggerty is in it, and he is like living his best. You can see there he's living his best Grizzly Adams life there. He's really charismatic. I like him and stuff. I can see why people kind of liked him in the 70s. This has a really fun commentary by David Del Val. Everybody knows like David's so awesome at these commentary tracks. He does this track with David Dakota, who is a cult filmmaker. They've done commentary tracks before, and they're always so incredibly entertaining. Like they mesh so well together. They are both so knowledgeable. Like both Davids have actually like met and talked to a lot of these people in the movie, so they give you a lot of well researched information, but then they also give you like personal anecdotes that only comes from really being in the trenches. So that's always kind of really great. The next one is
Can I weigh in real quick?
Oh.
Because I've actually seen all three of these movies like this weekend as well. I just want to say you just taught me something, because I did not like. I knew going into Terror Out of the Sky that it was a sequel, and I looked and I was like, oh, the original's on Blu-ray. But whenever they were doing the like flashbacks at the beginning, I was for sure that they were just showing footage from the original movie. I didn't know that they'd replaced the actress. Which I love the new actors. I love Tova Feldship, but that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I again, it was just by virtue of the fact that like I like went back and like rented the first one and then watched it almost back to back. And I was like, wait, that was different because that's not that actor. So I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And when we both kind of do these things, we try to like give you all some really good information to have like going into it, because I was very confused. Because I didn't realize it was a sequel. Because
Yeah.
again, these things usually don't get sequels, so it's really kind of awesome. But the original did so well. They actually, there's a thought that Warner Brothers, The Swarm, actually was greenlit because of the success of the first Savage
Wow.
Bees, which I haven't seen, but I think I'm gonna definitely maybe get into that sometime.
For sure.
But Ants is one that so here's the thing. I am very familiar with this trauma inducing cover from my local mom and pop shop.
Nice.
And yeah, because I mean, that is like, I mean, I feel like I have Crawley stuff all over
Yeah.
me now, just looking at it. So really well done marketing. The movie itself is not very good, but we'll get into it. So I think the biggest thing with this movie is it's really hard. They try really hard to make the ants seem like this incredible threat, right? Like they're like, oh, they're like super venomous because of all the toxins in the ground and the earth, and like their nature's fighting back. And I'm just like, yeah, but they're just like little tiny ants, and like, so what? um,
Mm.
like I don't know, like bees I think are a little bit more realistic of actual threat, because like in large numbers they can kill you. Like just ask Macaulay Culkin from My Girl.
Oh, yeah.
um got super dark. Yeah, but I mean, this movie's a lot of cheesy fun. It with any of these great movies like this, they kind of cram this social message into its exploitation to kind of give it some weight. I really love the cast. I like Bernie Casey's in this. Robert Foxworth is at his foxiest. That like coiffed hair, that mustache, like he's living his 70s fantasy. This is an early movie with Brian Dennehy, and it also has Susan Summers. It's among the last films of Myrna Loy. And fun fact, this movie reunites Foxworth and Casey from Damien the Omen 2, which I have a personal soft spot for. Um, yeah, so they do, like I said, they do the best they can with making the ants like a real palpable threat, but it's not great. Um, it's yeah, I mean, there are some really nice set pieces. There's definitely like some moments where I thought it was like tense. Ants, I believe, was the one where they had like they were trying to get everybody out of the hotel room with that like hook and ladder situation. That
Yeah.
was like a pretty good sequence. I binged all these in a weekend, so like I'm trying to like make sure that they're not all blurring together. But yeah, so that was cool. I mean, again, they do the best job that they can with ants, making that like a scary thing. But I enjoyed it. And the final one is. Oh wait, did I show off this back? This also has some really nice features. Again, gosh, this is incredible, like the amount of like stuff on it. The commentary track I should mention is Lee Gambin. He's amazing. His commentary tracks are always really well researched, really well worth checking out. The next one is Tarantulas, the Deadly Cargo. So it's a slipcover, really nice presentation as always. So here's the front, the back, and not reversible cover art. I was right in the fact that Ants is the only one that has that kind of amazing original artwork. But yeah, so Tarantulas is probably like, I would say, like my least favorite. Even though I was really excited about this because I think that spiders are like, I don't have a phobia of spiders, but I'm like, also just stay away from me.
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking forward to this. And it starts off really great. You got like Howard Hessman and Tom Atkins in this like bumbling duo that I really just wanted a spin-off movie of. But not to spoil anything, but don't get super attached to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie has and before I really get into it, the actors are really amazing in this. As again, I mentioned Tom Atkins, Howard Hessman, Pat Hingle is in this. All of these great character actors, and they're kind of just working like they really are not phoning it in. I mean, all three of these movies, I never really felt like the actors were like taking it like not seriously. So again, kind of like ants, there's some nice set pieces, but there isn't a huge amount of tension or dread that I feel like it builds up. It did have some really nice set pieces. I thought like the beginning, like the first 30 minutes with the plane and everything was great. Like it just clips along at a nice pace. Like there's a real sense of urgency with like, we need to like build this like little dam thing. We need to like get the gasoline out of the plane, and shit's blown up, and it's amazing. And it's like after that, it's kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I will say the way I won't spoil it, but it actually is a pretty interesting way they get rid of the spiders.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I think that was pretty fascinating. But yeah, again, it was entertaining. I mean, I do like it because it was like a really nice cheesy kind of fun ride. It didn't really ever have like that really like tense, even I mean even something like the giant spider invasion, like that I think I liked more just because it leaned in on the cheese. You got that like small town color that I was kind of hoping that this movie would have, and you really don't get a lot of that, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, so these all look really great. I believe all of these are yeah, so these are all new 2K masters, and um I would say that they're all about generally the same quality, which is really good. Now, like for instance, I like taking notes, I was saying in like the Deadly Cargo that the end finale is like very darkly lit, and you can definitely like see how the transfer is much brighter. You can actually like see what's going on. I obviously have never seen the like how it was originally presented, but I couldn't imagine that it was like very like visually exciting. Like you couldn't probably even see what was going on in that like final shot of Deadly Cargo. But yeah, they all look great. There's a little bit of instances of like artifacts and scratching, but like overall, like all three of these are really nice, crisp, clean. I mean, it's impressive what they can do with like these are all about 77, 78. Let's see. Yeah. So these are all from 77 and 78. So in those 2 years. And I mean, they look fantastic. I mean, especially for what they probably kind of had to work with. These are always a little bit lower budget, but yeah, they must have been working with some really nice like material because again, it's not flawless. I mean, it is 40 plus years old, but like it really looks and sounds great. They really did a fantastic job. Again, visually, I mean, there's a really nice presentation. You get slip covers with all these. As we always say, if you want the slipcover, you want to get it quickly. I saw some of these are temporarily out of stock on Amazon, which I'm sure will probably change by the time this goes up. But don't waste your time not ordering these. Definitely get them now. But yeah, I love it. I really want more made for TV horror movies, sci-fi movies. I know I just talked about oh, what was that alien movie?
UFO incident.
Yes, with James Earl Jones. That was really good.
Yeah.
Really good and bad. But yeah, so I mean, anything made for TV movie, put it in my eyeballs. I want it right now, especially when it's like insects and little critters and stuff. I love it.
Yeah. I just want to defend ants a little bit because that may have been my favorite of the three, either that or Terror Out of the Sky. But what, yeah, ants, they're not like super terrifying, but like you said, just feeling like there are ants on you after seeing so many ants. And I think it actually worked better than tarantulas, where you obviously, they aren't going to show like the spiders like sinking in or whatever, but like in ants you got to see them, like at least people covered in ants, and it was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. And like I think the finale, like you said, with the crane and everything, and like people having to like stay still and everything, and how uncomfortable that gets, I just thought that was really good use of tension. Like there is some stupid dialogue and like character choices and everything, and I think across maybe all three of these movies there's at least like one dumbass kid who really got what they deserved. But
Yeah.
especially in tarantulas, the kid who goes looking for the spiders on the truck, that's
He's
all I'll
like
say.
poking at it, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I do want to say I love that we had this conversation because I love Myrna Loy, and I had no idea she
Mm.
was an Ames. I did not recognize her, so I'm gonna have to go watch like her scenes again. I assume she's the old lady that they were
Mhm.
trying to get. That's so wild. I did not recognize her, and I love her so much. So
Yeah, I looked this up because again, I try to like give you all like some really good information with this, and I believe it's not her last movie, but it's among her last movies. Like she maybe did three or four, maybe more movies after this, maybe like another TV movie in there. But yeah, she, I mean, is a trooper. Like, well, you said you saw it. I mean, she
yeah,
definitely didn't feel like she phoned it in, and I mean, that's kind of what's awesome is like none of these actors are treating this material like um, Z grade quality. And yeah, that's I mean, that's kind of part of the charm is like nobody's taking it like less seriously. And it's yeah, it's just cheesy fun. I yeah, I will say one thing that I will say, there's some footage of like ants kind of devouring other like ants, and there was like ants devouring like bees and stuff. Do you remember that? Where they were like showing footage of,
uh, yeah, I think that.
and like I have to say that like creeped me out because like when it's just like up close and you're actually like seeing them like eat and stuff, it's and
Yeah,
like attack other. I was like, that's yeah, like that actually gave me the willies. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. I had fun with all three movies to varying degrees, but I had to advocate for ants because it made me so creeped out. So I just had
Well,
to throw
that
that out there.
and like listen, that's cool because that kind of makes me want to go back and rewatch it again. Just to give it another. And like I said, I didn't totally hate it. It's just I think that like it's hard for me to really get like super creeped out. Like, I mean, even with like tarantulas, I'm not super afraid of spiders, but also again, I'm just like, keep them away from me though, which would be good.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. Just pick them up, people. I want to see more. So
Yeah.
make those sales robust. Let's do this. Um, okay, there is no good transition to this next movie. There are zero connection as far as I can tell. So I'll just say it. This is a Taiwanese movie from Tsai Ming Ling. I probably butchered that, so I'll say that right off the bat. It's Vive L'amour from Film Movement Classics, which I quite enjoy. I had actually never seen a one of their films before. I know they recently had a film. I think it's Rebels of the Neon God, released through Vinegar Syndrome.
Mm.
I think through either them or one of their partner labels, which I have not seen, but I recognize the director. And so after this, especially, I'm looking forward to like probably picking that up in some other of their films. This comes with a nice booklet, as most film movement classic releases do. You got a nice essay, and got some. I will take out the disc so you can see the nice interior artwork. It's a still from the movie. Yeah, and this was released in 1992, I believe, or 94. 94, sorry. So yeah, this was released in 1994. Basic plot structure is it's kind of a character-driven drama. There's not like a ton of big narrative swings. It's basically about three people who come to use this kind of abandoned apartment that is like trying to be rented out for their own personal uses. So they kind of find themselves sharing this apartment, but unbeknownst to each other for the most part. They kind of get kind of immersed in each other's lives as things go along. But basically, it starts out with the lead character, this woman. She is a realtor who is trying to sell this apartment, but you see her kind of going to this apartment like whenever she's out and she just needs to do random things, or if she wants to like hook up with someone and just kind of like a place that's kind of like a neutral location, or just if she wants to go use the restroom. It's just kind of like mundane type of things like that. But then you also have kind of this this young gay man who's kind of like doesn't really fit in anywhere. He's kind of living on the streets, but he finds himself like he gains access to this building, and he kind of lives in this apartment when no one else is around. And then there's this third man who also he starts to become romantically involved with the first woman, but he also starts using the apartment, or he is already using. It's kind of like complicated to like remember what each person is using the apartment for initially, but they all are for their own gains. And it's just kind of how each of them connect within each other's lives and how they impact one another. It's a really like kind of gentle, like thoughtful drama. I like that this director, he doesn't really glamorize anything. It's very real, like tactile. Like the woman, she's never made out to look like glamorous or anything. They even have like a scene where she does just go to, it's not gratuitous or anything, but she just does go and uses the restroom, and it doesn't like, it's like kind of like a half body shot of her just on the toilet, just like using it. So it's just like kind of like de-glamorizing her instead of just like I said, kind of with the Virgin Suicide, like putting up on a pedestal. She's just kind of like a real woman out in the world, just trying to do her best, basically. And I won't spoil what happens, but this movie ends with a singular, like, I think it's like a 7 or 8 minute unbroken shot of someone doing one specific act. And it's just like a very powerful scene where you just like kind of focused on this person's face as they are going through something emotional. And it's just like everything that builds up to that moment, it's just really like layered and like just really like thoughtfully laid out and constructed drama that I really liked. Like if you like character driven dramas, this one is just like really like well executed. It's like I said, it's from the early 90s. And it's like, I think it's probably a film that played at Cannes, if I'm not mistaken. And I could definitely see that because it's like really like artistically driven, auteur driven. It's great. So this new release comes from a 2K restoration, and it looks really great. I think I mentioned whenever I did Pushing Hands a couple months ago that on that release, some of the like kind of like white levels or like the contrast kind of seemed a little overblown a little bit. Thankfully, that is not the case here. This has like kind of perfect contrast levels, strong, like delicate whites, dark blacks, no compression artifacts from what I could see. I think I'd still maybe caught a few like nicks or specks here and there, but it's like been cleaned up immensely and it looks really nice. So like I said, if you're a fan of character-driven dramas, I really like this one. Film Movement Classics, they did a really nice job. This comes with a 29-minute interview with the director. So that is always awesome to get like that amount of perspective from the director. That is the only on disc supplement. So yeah, that and the booklet, which I think together at least gives you some amount of insight into this title. So yeah, I highly recommend Vive L'amour.
Nice. That sounds really awesome. I haven't even heard of that, so I'll have to check that out. So yeah, mine also doesn't have a really good segue. Also, keeping up with like the news with Bette Midler, that's been really disappointing, especially when my next title is the First Wives Club. So yeah, so first of all, like we'll just take a look at this. So this is the Paramount Presents, as I said, and they always have a really nice format, how they usually do that with the original cover. And this has a like they always usually have something new. So this is like the filmmaker focus with the screenwriter. And again, I really have to give Paramount a lot of credit for not just, dumping this on Blu-ray, giving it like a new feature, at least giving it something that's a little bit more zhuzhed up. So um, we'll take a look inside. I'll pop this disc out so you can see the full kind of insert art here. And as you can see, there's like a quote there. So yeah, this was really interesting because I had not really seen this since probably when it came out in the like 1996. So it's been a minute. And I was kind of curious like how it was going to hold up. And so I will say that a movie from 1996, of course, the gender politics are going to be still pretty iffy, and um, oh boy, they certainly are. Like there are a lot of jokes about eating disorders, which is so like it just makes my skin crawl, and it also kind of sucks that it's kind of an easy like they use the new girlfriends or wives as an easy punching bag, but it's like again they kind of make like Sarah Jessica Parker, gosh, I can't talk. She is in this of course. She also was with Bette Midler in Hocus Pocus, and her character, Sarah Jessica Parker, is like the new wife of Bette Midler's husband character. And like, the whole joke with her is she's awful, like they call her like skinny and anorexic. And again, it's just like, oh, I hate stuff like that. But anyways, that, I mean, getting past that, it's still pretty funny. There's a lot of kind of timeless sort of themes about like getting back into the game, getting a certain age and kind of feeling like where are you where you want to be, are you like the fear of being replaced by a newer model. And I also will just say there are some triggering stuff outside of the eating disorder stuff. There is a character who commits suicide pretty early on. So if that's something that like is triggering, definitely maybe skip this one altogether. It's not, I mean, it's not gratuitous though. I mean, it is part, I mean, they do use it effectively, I think, plot wise, but still, if that's something that like upsets you or something, just be warned. But yeah, it's pretty fun. The characters are having a great time together. They really mesh well. Everybody has their own kind of time to shine. But what's nice is like nobody dominates. Like there's nobody that kind of like swallows up the entire scene. So that's, I mean, when you have big personalities like that, you kind of have to I think, be really smart about how you cast stuff like this. So yeah, it was pretty fun. It is interesting because in my notes, I wrote about it having a very positive queer character, which is ironic with stuff going on with Bette Midler right now, which I'm not going to get into, but Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, there is a really nice lesbian character that is portrayed in a pretty positive light, which is, good, especially for 1996. They don't really use her as a punchline, which is good. So yeah, the whole movie's really fun. I will say it's really nice looking. There is a little bit of blurring and like stuff like that where it doesn't like maybe look as clear as it could, but overall it's a really nice, crisp looking film. I can definitely tell that. I'm not sure if this is a new transfer, but probably.
Yeah, I think all the Paramount Presents titles gets new
Okay.
4K scans, so I think we're all good
Yeah,
there.
because it looks nice. It definitely looks. Again, is it pristine? No, there was a little bit of where I felt like the colors maybe looked a little bit muted, or again, not. It doesn't pop as much as you'd maybe want, but overall, I think a marked improvement. So it's nice because again, it does have a new interview. So if you have this on DVD or Blu-ray, I mean, it gives you a little bit of an incentive to like upgrade with like an extra feature. So that's nice. So yeah, it's a good movie, and you know, it's unfortunate what's going on with Bette Midler. So
Yeah, because I know a lot of people have been really excited to check this one out. So it's unfortunate timing, or just unfortunate it's happening at all,
yeah.
really. But I like my wife. She's had this on, like she's had the DVD on her Amazon wish list for a few years, and she like very nearly pulled the trigger a few months ago. I was like, no, no, wait, it's coming out on Blu-ray. Just wait, it's finally coming out. And she's like, okay. And so she was very excited to revisit this one because, especially for Diane Keaton, because she loves Diane Keaton.
Now, what did this not have a Blu-ray release before,
No,
or?
this was a debut.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I don't know why I was thinking this was. Well, there you go. So then this is definitely worth upgrading because I'm sure that this looks miles better than the DVD version of it. Again, this is like the only format that I've ever owned it, so I, I mean, but comparing this to like a DVD is probably like night and day. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely worth picking up if you're a fan.
yeah.
So based on how we're divvying up things this week, I think I'm going to do two titles my next go around. But I would just say this whiplash that I'm about to give you, like tonally, just prepare yourself. um, uh, First off, I'm going to start with the classic flicks release of Another Man's Poison with Bette Davis, which is not a new release, but it is new to me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this may have been the first Blu-ray that Classic Flicks released. So I'm really going back to the beginning with them, which I've seen by now. I've seen, I think, maybe every Classic Flicks release except one or two on Blu-ray. I'm closing in on, and I've been wanting to watch this ever since I realized Classic Flicks was aligned because I love Bette Davis, and any classic film fan worth their salt also probably loves Bette Davis. So this one was a fun one to discover. So this one, it kind of has a little bit of almost noir-ish qualities, but it's not, I wouldn't call it completely a noir. The basic conceit of this is that Bette Davis plays a woman who, at the beginning, she's just kind of known as a kind of independent woman whose husband is away on a business or doing business for large chunks of the year. And she's just kind of like a woman about town, until one day one of his business partners comes into the equation wanting to talk to him, and he's kind of like a shady character. But then this isn't a spoiler because it kind of sets off the plot. He realizes that that he is no longer, that her husband has been killed, and if she wants to remain basically a free woman and have this new dude not tell anyone, that she will pay him, or he blackmails her basically. So it's kind of that dynamic. And then no one really knows what her husband looks like. So whenever some unexpected guests come over, he has to pretend to be her husband while they are around. So it's kind of like this tension of this woman being blackmailed, having to pretend that this guy is her husband around other people, trying to keep the man happy so he doesn't rat on her in the first place, and dealing with like nosy neighbors who kind of are a little bit too invested on the comings and goings around town that might kind of mess up everything. So it's kind of like this this layered, not really contrived, but occasionally contrived plot elements where you're trying to see if Betty's going to get out of this a free woman or slash alive, or who might end up dead by the end of the story. I think it's a pretty strong drama overall. Betty, of course, delivers an amazing performance. This also includes Gary Merrill, who I wasn't completely familiar with, but I think he did a really good job as her counterpart. And there are some other kind of elements regarding like some infidelities things and all that, but I'll leave that for people who want to watch the movie. I do recommend it. I think it's a very strong Betty Davis title. I've definitely seen her in worse. I'll just say that because especially in her later life, she wasn't given the best roles, unfortunately, conducive to her star power and quality. But I think that Another Man's Poison is a really strong feature. This release features a really solid transfer. It like looks really nice. There's just like a little bit of like compression artifacts in some of the black levels, but it's not terrible by any means. It's a really strong effort. The audio, based on how old this is, you can kind of forgive it for sounding a bit thin, but it's not like a huge amount of wear and tear. It's just kind of slightly hollow in points. But there's also no special features. But if you're just looking for the movie, this is a good presentation, especially if you're a Betty Davis fan. Like I said, tonal whiplash, something much newer, much crazier, and that is Why Don't You Play in Hell by, I might butcher this, Sin Sono, who we were just talking about problematic people a few minutes ago. I will just say, from what I've heard, Sin Sono is a terrible human being and he's done a lot of abusive stuff. So I would just put that out there. I am aware of this, and I try to view his movies like kind of separately from that, which we have to do with a lot of problematic people if we want to watch certain movies. So yeah. But this movie, I believe it's from 2013 or 14. And the basic, it's a wild movie. Anyone who's seen Prisoners of Ghostland, it's the same director. You know that he's kind of has like a Gonzo Bizarro style. What I really like about this movie, or one of the things I really like about this movie is that it's kind of like a love letter to cinema. It begins with in kind of like an extended flashback with it kind of sets up all the players of like there's some competing mob bosses who are like kind of going after one another, and then there's also this young group of kids who are just like really into filmmaking, and they have like a expletive filled names. I think they call themselves the Fuck Bombers. makes sense within the context, but they keep kind of like shouting that like as their like root mantra. Um, but so it involves these kids who, like I said, are really into cinema, and they like meet this other kid who's kind of like a street urchin, rough and tumble type guy, who becomes part of the group. And then there's also this other factor where there's this child of one of the mobsters who is a like television like commercial actress who's like kind of like world famous. It seems convoluted, but just go with me. They grow up, and all these this group is still trying to make like the great movie, like a great genre movie, and there's still this like kind of mob warfare going on. And then these kids get into a situation where they get recruited to make a movie about this mob warfare, and it's kind of like this exaggerated commentary on movie making, where like there'll be these mobsters right in the middle of like trying to say something very serious to their like adversary, but then they're like, okay, no, we didn't quite get this, we want maybe say it this way or something. So it's kind of like a ridiculous commentary on movie making and how just not taking it too seriously and all that type of stuff. It's extremely violent. There's like some really beautiful shots in this of like insane gore. There's like this shot where a young girl goes into an apartment where there's basically like an ankle deep standing level of placid blood just covering the floor, which is like insanely beautiful because you have like this crimson blood covering the floor, and you kind of think it's just like the floor, but then you see her step into it and it kind of ripples out and you're like, whoa, that's wild. And then it kind of like devolves into this like insane finale where like basically anyone and everyone just like kills one another, and it's so bloody, so bloody. It's wild. There's just like arms being chopped off, like knives just stuck in heads, just like bullets, like swords, everything. It's just like everything crazy in a blender into a movie. So overall, it's a really fun movie. I really did enjoy it. I would say it's overly long. It's a little over 2 hours long, which I think it's like 2 hours and 9 minutes long, which is a bit too much. I probably would have like tried to get it down to like 150 to just cut off some of the fat and everything. But if you like, just if you're a fan of just like kind of those gonzo movies like Shoot 'em Up or Crank or something, like something in that kind of like out there style, I think you would have a lot of fun with Why Don't You Play in Hell, which was released previously from Draft House Films. I believe that release had a like a special feature, like maybe like a Q&A or something. This actually doesn't have any special features, so I'm not sure what happened there. But I think it was probably out of print. So if you've been wanting to like own this movie, it's back in print. The AV quality is solid, but no special features.
Yeah, I know I've besides Ghostland, I know I've seen some of his other movies and they're crazy. So that's why I was like saying I was really interested to hear what you I haven't seen this one yet, but that's why I was like pretty interested to hear what you thought of it because yeah, you know, personal like stuff with the director aside, I'm a little bit like lukewarm on his stuff. There's things that there's movies that I really like, and then there's movies that I find kind of obnoxious. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. So my final film is one that I will say I was not really looking forward to.
I saw this on Twitter. That
Yeah.
was wild.
So Edge of Tomorrow, in this beautiful 4K and Blu-ray. So really nice slipcover. Here's the back. And this has, of course, the Blu-ray and the 4K. So there will be a digital copy in there. But yeah, so in my defense, it does look pretty generic, like a generic kind of like shoot 'em up, which listen, that's fine. I like those kind of movies too, but I just kind of have to be kind of in the mood for something like that.
Yeah.
I will say that having kind of ripped the band-aid off and watched it, I really, really liked it. I the best way to describe it, and I'm gonna try to be kind of vague because there is some really cool like twists and stuff, is it's basically like a high concept Groundhog Day or like Happy Death Day, where you have the reset kind of, I guess, time travel trope. Um, and I think that's really cool. And like it's interesting because the way they kind of set this up is Tom Cruise is in battle with this like really cool like mech suit. There's like a running gag at the beginning where is the safety on, like he doesn't even know how to like take the safety. Have you seen this?
Yeah, yeah. I saw it in
Yeah.
theaters and I had a blast
Okay.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, um so he gets killed, but this like I think they call him like alpha alien, like his blood gets into Tom Cruise's face orifices, and that basically like makes him able to like retain the alien's power to be able to kind of reset. And um it's just wild. It's definitely one of those movies that it has a really cool concept. I think, if I'm being fair, it's probably a little bit overly complicated at times. And there are things where it didn't really make sense, but you had to like go to point A to point B to get there. So, stuff like that didn't bother me because it was so fun. It's so like fast paced, but they do give you some interesting like character stuff. Like I love Emily Blunt. I think she's amazing. I think that I was a little worried that she was going to be maybe underdeveloped as a character, but they do give her like I I mean, as they don't really give her a lot character wise, but you just get enough that it's at least it doesn't feel like they've wasted her. And Tom Cruise is fun. I'm not like a huge I don't dislike Tom Cruise, but I'm just not like it's not a sell for me necessarily if Tom Cruise is in a movie. Listen, I like him. He's a good actor. It's just I'm not like a huge like I go crazy for Tom Cruise, but he's really good in this. And I will say, I love the sense of humor this movie has. Like it walks this razor edge of humor, but it's not a comedy. But it does have these moments where some levity kind of breaks it up and helps it become not too bleak. Because I mean, face value, the concept is very like drab and depressing. And like visually the movie is stunning, but palette wise it's very muted, which I will talk about with the restoration. But anyways, like it's the comedic kind of stuff that helps it from getting too oppressive and like yeah, so I appreciated that. It looks great. I think that this was a absolutely stunning restoration from Warner Brothers. It's a newer film, and you can tell that it being shot on digital, like it really like looks fantastic. Sharpness, like crisp and like the clean. It's like the soundtrack is incredible. Like I had like my furniture rumbling. Like it's nice because it really has this overwhelming almost in like three-dimensional kind of sound going on. Yeah, so it's probably one of the more outstanding looking 4Ks as far as like recent semi-recent movies. And yeah, I said this before, but a lot of these like studios like Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, they're like really crushing it with going back and really shining up a lot of their recent, semi-recent, and even older like stuff. So yeah, this looks fantastic. I feel like if like there's no new features, so as you can see, it's just everything ported over. But I just think that it's just so worth the upgrade if you can. And it's got the Blu-ray, so if you don't have necessarily a 4K yet, I mean the Blu-ray's still upgraded. So you still should check it out and get it. Because it was a fun movie. I really liked it. I didn't think I was gonna like it. It would be something I would definitely watch. I think it would be really fun. I'm a little jealous because I think I would have loved to have seen this in the theater like you did.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I have a soft spot for this movie for sure. Especially, I like that, at least compared to a lot of like Tom Cruise movies where he's like the cool guy or like the put together guy. Like I like that he basically plays a coward and he has to learn how to like be a hero. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's definitely like he I mean, he has the coolness automatically because he's Tom Cruise, but he's getting his ass kicked for like a good majority of like the training sequences is incredible, and he's getting tossed around like a rag doll. Like there's a really cool like the you remember the training facilities with like the little like squid things,
yeah,
and he's just getting like bashed and beaten, and I haven't I didn't keep track of like how many times he gets killed in this, but it's a lot.
it's
It's
yeah,
um and that's not a spoiler. I think in the trailer they like say that he can die and come back. So
yeah.
uh,
So
yeah.
yeah, and they even went so far as to like rename this movie like Live Die Repeat for like
Mhm.
VOD platforms and stuff. Even though I've never thought Edge of Tomorrow was a bad title, but
Yeah,
they
that and you can see that
yeah
on the it's kind of like all over the thing
yeah
there. Yeah, again, fun movie. It is loaded with extras. It's really worth checking out, I think.
absolutely. So heading down to my final stretch of two titles. These are more closely linked, but still quite different. I'll start off with one that kind of connects to one that you talked about a couple months ago. And this is from the Journals of Gene Seberg, which is from the director of Rock Hudson's Home Movies,
Oh, nice.
which I think is probably pretty similar in structure based on what I remember you saying about that movie. So just this is a DVD, one of the rare DVDs that I talk about. This has Mary Beth Hurt playing Gene Seberg, reflecting back on her life, which I think is pretty much how you said the Rock Hudson movie was set up. It's like an actor playing Rock Hudson, talking about his work. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so this is kind of how the director does stuff. This is from 1995. I had like a basic familiarity with Gene Seberg, namely because she started, or there's a movie about her starring Kristen Stewart called Seberg, which I believe is on Amazon Prime. I saw it in theaters back in its run in like 2018, I believe. I think I like that movie more than a lot of people. I think it's a really good movie. So that's just a separate plug. Um, but so I knew a little bit about her life. I know she was like an actress back in like I think it started in the 50s or 60s, and she made her debut in Otto Preminger's version of I think it's Saint Joan or Saint Joan of Arc. It's his Joan of Arc movie, and it is probably most famously known for like featuring a take where Joan is being burned at the stake, and Jean is like acting that out, and then a real flame like comes up and like nearly burns her, and there's like a real like yelp of like panic and startle, and that is the take that Preminger decided to use in the film. Um, so because he was kind of an asshole and abusive, and so that's the reason I bring that up is because that is kind of how she got her start into movies, and it is the like I said, Mary Beth Hurt playing Joan, reflecting back on, or Jean, reflecting back on her interaction or her filmography, including her abusive relationship with certain directors, how she was portrayed in the media, issues of like kind of how she were viewed in like a feminine lens. She brings in a lot of like she talks about a lot of other like prominent female figures like Jane Fonda or Vanessa Redgrave, and how their careers kind of paralleled her career. Like as everyone knows, probably like Jane Fonda was a prominent like detractor of like the Vietnam War, and a bunch of she's basically always getting arrested for protesting something, which we love her for. We love Jane Fonda. But Jean Seberg, her cause, like she was really supportive of the Black Panther movement, so much so that she was like had a file on her from the FBI because she would like host like fundraising things for the Black Panthers and all that type of stuff. And she was also really taken to task by like certain members of the press. They really kind of like went after her in various ways. They spread rumors about her. There's all that kinds of stuff. So, and then there's also like discussions about how directors kind of manipulated her into doing certain things in movies, like certain like erotic things, sexual things. So there's a lot of examinations of just various problematic and like tough subjects that happened to her throughout her career. So like whereas something like Rock Hudson's Home movies like look through thing like through like queer coded cinema that happened in his films and like how that was like tied into his personality. This particular film goes in more like a feminist direction. And I think Jean Seberg is a really fascinating figure of just cinema. And like she was in like I think it's Godard's Breathless. I think that's one of her like bigger early movies. Who a lot of people who own Criterions, that's like one of like the foundational movies for them. So yeah, it's really interesting to get to hear her story. I have to say, I'm not completely a fan of the approach of having a performer play the person talking about their experiences. It works sometimes, other times I find it a little bit distracting. I know they just didn't want to do like a standard like talking head documentary. They wanted to make it more personal. It's just the approach doesn't always completely work with me. I think it's like an interesting movie with interesting information. It's just not like perfect for me, but it's I wanted to know the information, so I was willing to go through that. And this also has a couple other short films, kind of like the Rock. I was looking at the Rock Hudson DVD earlier, and they also have like various short films from the director. This one has one called Becoming Anita Ekberg, which is 17 minutes. There's a 37-minute film called Deborah Paget, for example. And then there's one called Anna, Nana, Anna, that is a 31-minute documentary from 2019. So there's like 3 more kind of like short documentaries from the director as well, which kind of rounds out the feature. I do wish this was a Blu-ray, but given like how I saw the source quality, like how it was presented, it seemed like it was maybe done on like video, maybe, which made it probably would have made it tough to upgrade. But they did do that for the signifying works of Marlon Riggs, but they probably didn't want to put that. The Criterion did for Marlon Riggs. They probably just didn't want to put that much effort like into this and cost compared to probably how many people would actually purchase it. So I get it, but it's an interesting piece of like cinema history if you're into that. And I believe the director has another DVD release coming out soon that I think you're probably going to be getting, if I'm not mistaken, which deals with queer cinema. I think so. So that's like a tease for a potential title in the future. Uh, Final title is a Cohen and Kino Lorber release of Breathe In, starring Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones, who people probably know from like the Theory of Everything. It also has Amy Ryan, who people would probably either know from like Gone Baby Gone or The Office. So two totally different things. This movie, it is entertaining, but it's kind of reductive a little bit and familiar. Felicity Jones plays a foreign exchange student from England, I believe, who is coming to live with this family led by the father, Guy Pearce. They have a daughter also played by Mackenzie Davis, who people might know from Tully or *Halt and Catch Fire*. So she comes to live with this family. He's like a teacher slash aspiring, or he's a pianist who's trying to be part of like the New York New York Symphony. And he's kind of like at odds with his wife, who's kind of like dismissive a lot of his dreams, like basically telling him to be sensible whenever he's trying to like dream big. So there's kind of like a little bit of tension in the marriage, and then voila, a beautiful young exchange student comes into the scenario. And what might happen when there's she's also an aspiring pianist, and so she kind of looks up to him, and so the story goes where you expect it to go. It's kind of how this girl comes into this family's life. She's kind of trying to deal with a little bit of like homesickness. She doesn't know she should even be like in the US. She kind of wants to go home, but then she kind of starts becoming enamored with Guy Pearce's character. And it's kind of how her presence impacts this family. There are things I like about this movie. I feel like the movie doesn't really end in like a satisfying way, especially for the Felicity Jones character. You don't really get as much closure as you really want. It's just kind of like a standard drama slash partial tragedy, but they didn't really go as dark as they could have. It's fine. If you like the performers, I think it's worth a watch, but there are just elements of just, you've seen it before, and I don't like just like the framing of just like a girl who is kind of seen as like breaking up a family, basically, because I mean, she's not completely like given all of the blame, but just it's kind of like a too familiar story, and they don't exactly explore anything with much more nuance than as you would expect, especially since this came out, I believe, in 2012 originally. So in a decade's time, we have like evolved with like feminine stories more. We're still not perfect, but more. And at this time, especially, I believe this was a male director. Yeah. So he obviously doesn't have all the insights that probably could be given into the story. So it's good, not great. There is an interview with the director on here and another like kind of brief making of featurette. And overall, it looks good. It sounds fine, like as much as you would want a like modern movie. It looks and sounds great. So recommended if you like the performers. Otherwise, it's not like spectacular.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. I like Guy Pearce. I don't think he's an amazing actor, but I like looking at him. So that's it always kind of like blows my mind that he played Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Wild. Anyways,
Yeah.
maybe miscast. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Just going back to the Gene Seberg thing real quick. Yeah, it was like it's interesting when they did this with the Rock Hudson movie, where it was like they had somebody playing him, narrating it. And again, I definitely agree. it is really kind of awkward and weird at first. I think you have to get a little bit used to it. So um I do want to check that out though, because I did overall really like the Rock Hudson film. And yeah, and I don't know, I know some of her like films. I mean, Breathless, of course, and like some of her other notable works, but like I don't really know a whole lot about her life. So I think that would be really interesting to check out. And I think that that kind of covers our wide
Yeah.
range of movies. And yeah, as always, it was really cool to talk about some of the bigger budget stuff, some of the littler stuff, like with what you were just talking about with the Gene Seberg, or like the Breathe In, which sounds pretty interesting. And you know, as always, definitely consider giving us a like, subscribe. We do these videos weekly, so you don't want to miss that. So you know, definitely make sure you do that. And thanks for hanging out with us.